The time that is given to us, the time that is given to us, must be used wisely. The Bible has a lot to say on this. Jesus taught a lot on that. And the well-known parable of the talents is the one that I wanted to bring to you this morning, because it fits in well with the Sabbath school lesson about discipleship. And I look around and I see people, and I observe people. I do that a lot. And I see people that are accumulating or pretending to be accumulating. And I look at them, and I look at their orientation in life. And I see the vanity of a life without Jesus. I know we all struggle, and we're sinners and all the other things. But let's face it. If you seek Jesus and you follow him, your life not only rich now, but in the future to come. And so the parables allude to this very strongly. So we have different amounts that was entrusted. But Jesus made a warning. He says in Matthew 25, this is just before his ordeal, "Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming." You know, it is interesting that many people intend, they are going to one day live right. One day they will follow Jesus. And one day they'll become good. It is a most, what shall I say, dangerous way to think. You cannot, I cannot, none of us can afford to put this work off. This is the most important work. We are redeemed. Every one of you sitting here, you are redeemed. We are redeemed. But we are redeemed for service. That is the truth. So he said, "Watch therefore." And when he said, "Watch therefore," it meant pray. Have your mind, your spiritual mind open to what you should do. Because you don't know the hour and the day that the man, you have to be ready now, because your life can be snatched away from you like that. And so, for the kingdom of heaven, he said, is like a man traveling to a far country. That man traveling to a far country is Jesus himself, because he was going home to heaven, right? And so who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. Now remember, these goods are not belonging to the servants, they are entrusted to the servants. Can I start from the very beginning? Whatever you have, and that's the whole spectrum of your whole existence, whatever has been given to you is entrusted to you. It is not really yours, and that is where so many go wrong. And we'll talk about that a bit more. To one he gave 5 talents. To another one he gave 2. And to another one he gave just the 1. And we'll talk about the difference in the talents that he entrusted to the different people and see why the difference. To each according to his ability. There's a good indicator here. To each according to his own ability. In other words, the one that was given the 1 talent could not have handled the 5 talents. The one who had the 2 was not given the 5 because that was not within his ability either. And so the one that was given the 1, it was only fair that within his ability, he was only given the 1. Nobody can turn around in this life or on the conclusion of it to say, God entrusted far too much to me. The Bible says he gives you for as much as you can bear. Is that clear? Good. Immediately he went on a journey. And this is very close to Jesus. It's only days away to his ordeal. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them. And so he made another 5 talents. This confirms that he had that capacity. He didn't make 10, he didn't make just 1. He faithfully employed himself to double the principle. And of course, you know the story. Likewise, the one who had received the 2, he gained 2 more. And so that was good. But the one who had received 1 and dug in the ground, he did not multiply it by 1. And herein lies the difference. He hid his Lord's money. It wasn't his money to hide. These talents were not his, they were entrusted to him. And so that's what he did do. And then after a long time, the Lord of those servants came. Because there's a time of reckoning, you understand. He settled accounts with them. There's one thing we all must understand. God will ask for accountability. The title really of the sermon is to be accountable for the talents that are entrusted to you. And you've all received them. It doesn't have to be the money. It doesn't have to be what possessions you may have. It may not even be the position, the intellect, the capacity for study, development, all the things that you have perhaps taken for granted as being attributable to yourself. No. They talents. And that, together with one more that I would like to mention right now, and perhaps the one that you have to give most account for. The one that you have to give the most account for is this one. Does anybody know? There must be some time. Did you know that God asks the most accountability for our time? I might just put the air conditioning on, boom. So this is something that you might like to bear in mind next time you sleep in. I'm not saying that sleeping in is a sin, but if it takes half your day, think again. Think again. Or if there is rather a drive towards an amusement and an entertainment, I'm not saying that that is necessarily sin. It's not about, folks, it's not about what you're doing. It's about what you're not doing. Can you get that message? Okay. So he settled his accounts with them. So he who had received the 5 talents, he came and he brought 5 other talents, saying, and this is what he's saying, Lord, you have delivered to me 5 talents. He acknowledges where his talents come from. It begins with the acknowledgement where the gifts that you have been given. We all have received talents. The difference, sometimes people have asked me, what is the difference between a spiritual gift and a talent? Let me tell you what it is. When you're given a talent that might seem like a natural ability, you have received that from God. When you take that talent and you return it to God, you dedicate it to God. He accepts that talent back, and then he returns it to you, sanctified and empowered. And that's then a spiritual gift. Is everybody clear on that? Good. So he had received 5 talents, brought 5, the other talents, saying, Lord, you have delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 talents besides these. There is nothing in his demeanor that says they should belong to me. No. The principle was there. And therefore the increase also belongs to the Lord. Bear in mind, you have been given an intellect and an understanding. If you develop this, and you reach that degree, you reach that position, that still belongs, that degree still belongs to the Lord. Had he not given you the intellect, you could not have done so. Okay. So, the Lord said to him, I want you to see this, there's something very remarkable in this statement. Well done, good.
And faithful.
He doesn't say, well done, perfect servant. He says, good and faithful. And then he goes on to say, you were faithful over a few things. Now get this. I will make you ruler over what?
Many things.
Do you understand the significance of this statement? That whatever God has entrusted to you and you are faithful, there will be a time that you have a huge increase in your responsibilities, in your capabilities, abilities to rule, to be entrusted with far more beyond your wildest comprehension. Something to bear in mind. I have a good statement coming up on this one. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He had multiplied the talent. To him it was a natural thing to do. And he therefore is fit to enter into the joy of the Lord. When you look at people, when you ask people, where would you like to go? Let's just put it bluntly. Would you like to go to heaven or would you like to go to hell?
Heaven.
There we are. She just confirmed it. But would heaven be heaven to you if you didn't love him? If you were unfaithful? If you thought that God was not good, not kind, not benevolent, would you want to be with him? Or is it only escape of the alternative? Do you understand? That's right. He who also had received 2 talents, and a very similar story. I want you to look at something. Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. How many? 2 more. It was within his ability. God never asks of you what you cannot do. You must remember that too. His Lord said, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over
Many things.
So it is not about the amount of the talents that you multiplied. That's not what it's about. It is about 2 things. To be good and faithful. Are you with me? It is the faithfulness that counts. Both of these would enter into the joy of their Lord. Do you understand? Because they served him here and they will serve him there. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man. It's very strange that the one of the 5 and the 2 talents did not think he was a hard man. And this one had the least of complaints because he only had to work with the 1 talent. There was nothing that the master asked of him that he couldn't have done. Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown. Now that's an acquisition. And that acquisition is false. Because the sowing was the handing over and entrusting of the 5 talents, the 2 talents, and the 1 talent. So this is not correct. But it is a false accusation, a lame excuse. And gathering where you have not scattered seed. That's not true. He scattered the 5 talents, the 2 talents, the 1 talents. He was entitled for the return. He could have refused the talent. He could have, but he didn't. He accepted. He accepted the 1 talent. He did, and it was not his property. And then he says this, and I was afraid, and afraid of what? That he might lose the 1 talent? He's going to anyway.
Or the consequence.
And I was afraid and went and hid your talent. At least he's got this right. That talent belonged to his master. I hid your talent in the ground. Now what's going to happen to it in the ground? Absolutely nothing. There are people who do that. The point is this: people who take their God-given capabilities and they bury it. They live for themselves and never serve their Lord or their fellow man. And if you're one of those, and I'm sure you wouldn't be, this is for you. Look, here is what is yours. But the Lord answered, his Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant. Now here you have the problem. This Lord is not denying the accusations. He just meets him on his own ground. If I am ruthless, if I am hard. There are people who believe that God is hard. You know, you can't do this, you can't do that. And you have to do this and you have to do that. Oh, it's too much. Too much, because they have never come to the foot of the cross.
I get it all the time. They say he was ruthless in the Old Testament.
Well, the God of the Old Testament is the God in the New Testament. And if you can bear that in mind and you consider the forbearance of God, how long, and maybe this afternoon would be enlightening for you to learn more, how long God put up with these people. I have one thing that I can learn by every day. How long God put up with me. I wouldn't put up with me.
Me either. Put up with me.
Oh, me neither. What have I done to you?
Me, not you. Not you.
See, the truth comes out, you know.
Not you and me.
You wicked and lazy servant. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking in general. So the Lord says that he is wicked, he is lazy. He doesn't have to deny the accusations. There's a problem with the 1 talent guy. You knew that I reap where I have not sown. If that is what you believed. He says, and gather where I not scattered seed. If that is what you believe. You could at least have deposited my money with the bankers. But even that was too much. He had no inclination to serve his Lord and his fellow human beings. He had no inclination to do that. And at my coming, I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore, and this is an interesting part, take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. Why would he take it from the one that had the one? Well, we can understand that part. He's not going to do anything with it anyway. Correct?
Correct.
It is only fair that it is removed from him. There is a probation. And then he says, give it to one who has the 10. Because that is the one that is most likely to once again multiply it. And so the lesson is here, for to everyone who has, more will be given. If in your life you choose to serve him, serve your fellow man because of him, God will entrust more unto you. Now you say, but I'm not good in preaching, teaching, Bible studies. It's not just about that by a long shot. You can go to your work and work for him, and your boss is only incidental. The money, the salary you get is only incidental, because the rewards is there. You understand? And so if you bear that in mind, that as you do even your housework, the way you cook, the way you look after, iron clothes, whatever it is, the mundanest of duties done to his glory, is using the talents that you have. And that's where you serve him. From your way to work, from work, your leisure time, social time, you work for him. You understand? This is an attitude. It clearly is a position that you take many times a day. For to everyone who has more will be given. He will entrust you with more. And he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And I have met many people like that. Firstly, the time that they have been granted. Every day is a gift from God. Every hour is because of his sustaining power. And also every and anything that you may possess or profess that you are, let's face it, it's given to you. It never belongs to you. And if you don't render it for service, it will be taken away. How will you be a success? How can you be a success? How do you measure the success? There's only one success, and that is to walk one day with the throng of the redeemed of all ages, to walk through that gate into the New Jerusalem. That is success. All those who walk through that have been successful. And cast the unprofitable servant in the outer darkness. There he will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The Lord in his distribution of gifts is testing character. Because he who had received the 5 talents, had he, the one with the 1, had he received the 5 talents, he would have buried them as much and as quickly as he buried the 1. Do you understand? It's not in the amount of the talents. There are those who wait for big things to happen in their life. One day they're going to be serving God. They never will, because they haven't started now. Now is the time. With the little that you may have, he wants you to work for him and with him. A test of character. He that is faithful, Luke 16 verse 10. He that is faithful in that which is least is also faithful in much. We think in terms of our earthly life, and that's fair. I want you to cast your mind beyond that earthly time, the age that we know and familiar with. When we taken to the realms above, beyond the New Jerusalem, there is a whole universe. And God will entrust to us service to be performed throughout that limitless cosmos. Paul says that it hasn't even entered the mind of man. But I know that God has incredible plans for us. Not just here, but beyond, throughout the eternity. We must always bear that in mind. The talents returned. When Jesus returns, the talents are made accountable. Those who had them. The work done reveals the character of the worker. There would have been no gain without the deposit. The capital is his. Your life, your ability, capacity, wherever you are, it does not belong to you. You are created for one reason, and the second one, you are redeemed. Bought back. And so, the improvement is his also. Whatever you do, do it to his glory. The question is most concerned as not, that is not proper English. The question that most concerns us is not how much have I received, but what am I doing? What are you doing with that which you have received? Would you expect God to give you more and you only deal with it with the same neglect? It would increase your culpability because of your neglect. God wouldn't do that to you. But what am I doing with what I have received? All his biddings are his enablings. God really never asked anything of any of us here if we couldn't or can't do it. It is the faithfulness. It is the loyalty to God that wins the divine approval. That comes from Christ's object lesson. A few more statements. I think she has a way of putting it. We shall be judged by what we ought to have done. We always think in terms that we will be judged on what we have done. No, most of it, the judging, will be on what you ought to have done. Does that make sense to you? I hope so. I hope so. He who refuses to impart that which he has received will at last find that he has nothing to give, because it is a talent that is being removed from you. They receive the same condemnation. Those who have neglected receive the same as the one who has hidden it and dug a hole in the ground. Note this statement. I like this statement. Christ Object Lessons 360. He, God, will bequeath the most in the future life to those who have done or do the most faithful service, willing service in the present life. Here is your ultimate investment. Your ultimate investment is what you do right now with that which he has entrusted to you. Use it, and there's a future. I cannot paint the picture in words, but it'll be enormous. And so, God will not accept the greatest talent or the most splendid service. It's a sober statement. Unless self is laid up on the altar. How do you serve him? How do you serve God? You have to learn to lay yourself upon the altar. Every day you must question, did I do what I did for his glory or mine? He chooses his agents not because they are perfect, but because through a connection with him, they may gain perfection. You know, this is the one statement, when I read that, I've always put it in here. How do I become perfect? By defeating any bad habit? No. I become perfect by connecting. And I'm still connecting, so I'm still not perfect. By connecting with him and working with him, I grow. And so will you. And you have. It is by connecting, please. It is applicable in your life. There's no one exception. You're not an exception. You're the rule. By connecting with him, you become perfect. Not by what you attempt on your own. It doesn't work that way. The sentence, cast you the unprofitable servant into outer darkness, sets heaven's seal to the choice in which they themselves have made for eternity. You neglect it now, and there is no eternity for you other than non-existence. You haven't tasted the joy and the reward serving him and fellow men now. You are not fit for heaven. And heaven wouldn't be heaven to you. It would be only another attempt for you to bury what he has given to you in the ground. And what use would it be? And so the sentence, cast you the unprofitable servant, you really need to read this and remember this, into outer darkness, sets heaven's seal. Who did the choice? Yeah, the unfaithful servant. To the choice which they made themselves, or they selves have made for eternity. And so, learn to love. A couple of handy tips. Learn to love without condition. You think you can do that? Yeah.
Try.
Talk without bad intention. Never lift yourself up in your conversation. It's no good, particularly not at the cost of others. Give without any reason. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing.
Why is that, Barend?
As Jesus said, if you make a gift, say, Warren, you're here, and we hold the collection. Yeah? Now here's comes some fatherly advice your way. And here is Warren, and he has a whole fistful of $100 notes. And he puts them into the basket so that everybody can see it. And everybody goes, oh. Probably where did he get that from? But we won't. You do it so everybody can see what you're doing. And Jesus would say to you, Warren, you already have your reward. You bought the admiration of the others. You understand? How you do that? Bring that fistful of $100 anyway and give it neatly in an envelope to me, and I make sure it gets to the right place. And I won't talk about it.
Okay.
You understand? Your left hand wouldn't know what your right hand was doing. Get it?
Get it?
And most of all, care for people without any expectation. Don't expect a favor in return. Do you understand? Very important. Your life as a Christian should make non-believers question their disbelief in God. You like that one?
Yes.
Yep.
That's a good one. Remember that your life as a Christian should make non-believers question their disbelief in God. Just because someone is a Christian doesn't mean they are perfect, but they follow someone who is. Can you tell the difference?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
That's it. That's us. We're not perfect, but we'll follow the one who is, right? Right. We know where we're going, and we do it now, not later. Fair enough too?
Yeah.
Don't put it off. Tomorrow is too late. And so in conclusion, you walk with him today, and you will walk with him in the heavenly courts above forever. May God bless you. May God bless you. Shall we like to call on those who do? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity, the fact that the freedom we have and the talents that you have entrusted to us.
Thank you for that, Barend, very much.
That we can employ them in your service and for the well-being of our fellow
our last
men.
hymn now. It's Be
Lord, you
Still
have
My
enabled
Soul.
to do is
So let's all
for us to do
once
all
again,
those things.
stand
Help
with
us
me
to
and
be
let's sing this
faithful.
last hymn.
We thank you for being our God. That you are the one who comforts, and only you can do that. Lord, help us to be faithful. We're not always that.
Be still my soul,
Make us strong.
the Lord is
Help us to
on
be
thy
faithful.
side.
Thank you
Bear
for
patiently the cross of grief or pain.
forgive us.
Give to thy God,
Lord, we can move forward, but
and
forwards above.
provide
In the arms way
every
of
change.
this very
Be faithful
whole entity where we live. That you have plans for us to serve.
my soul.
That you have plans for us to minister. Whatever it may be, Lord, what you have in mind.
Thorny ways
Lord, help us
to a joyful end.
so we can continue to render
Be still my soul,
serve you.
thy God doth undertake.
So, Lord, as we fellowship
To
together,
guide the
enjoy the food, we thank you for those who have
Christ, He has the power.
This day serve you too.
My confidence let not be
Lord, I thank you for these people. I thank you for the food.